More than 2,000 years have passed since Plato first recorded the story of Atlantis in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, and yet the name still stirs the imagination with remarkable force. Civilizations have risen and fallen, continents have been mapped, oceans crossed, and satellites sent into orbit at Atlantis remains alive in the human psyche. It exists somewhere between history and dream, between memory and myth. The enduring fascination with Atlantis is not merely about a sunken island. It is about ourselves. Atlantis matters because it speaks to something ancient within us. It represents a memory of greatness lost, of wisdom once possessed, harmony between humanity and nature that somehow slipped away. Whether Atlantis was a physical civilization submerged beneath the sea, or a philosophical allegory crafted to warn of moral decay, its narrative touches a universal chord. It evokes the Golden Age archetype, a time of unity, abundance, knowledge, and divine connection, followed by decline, corruption, and catastrophe. That pattern is not only historical, it is psychological and spiritual. It mirrors the cycles of civilizations, the evolution of consciousness, and even the personal journey of the human soul. The power of Atlantis lies in its layered meaning. On the surface, it appears as a historical account, a mighty maritime civilization beyond the Pillars of Hercules. Technologically advanced and militarily powerful, destroyed in a single day and night of cataclysm. Beneath that historical framing lies a philosophical allegory. In Plato's telling, Atlantis becomes a warning about hubris, about the loss of moral virtue in the pursuit of power. It stands as a mirror held up to Athens and, by extension, to every civilization that follows. Yet beneath both history and allegory lies something deeper still: Atlantis as archetype. As archetype, Atlantis is the symbol of humanity's forgotten origin. Across cultures, myths tell of lost lands, great floods, divine ages, and sudden destructions. These stories emerge in Mesopotamian epics, in Egyptian cosmology, in Mesoamerican traditions, and in countless indigenous oral histories. The recurrence of this motif suggests more than coincidence. It may reflect collective trauma from ancient cataclysms at the end of the last ice age. It may encode geological memory preserved through myth. Or it may arise from the structure of the collective unconscious itself, as described in depth psychology. In each case, Atlantis functions not merely as a location, but as a symbolic container for humanity's deepest questions about origin, fall, and renewal. Atlantis also endures because it challenges the boundaries of certainty. Modern science has uncovered submerged cities, dramatic shifts in sea levels, and evidence of sophisticated cultures far older than once believed. At the same time, the absence of definitive proof keeps Atlantis in a liminal space. It resists closure. It invites exploration. It provokes debate between skeptics and seekers, historians and mystics. That tension keeps the legend alive. The mystery itself becomes part of its power. Yet the relevance of Atlantis extends beyond curiosity about the past. It speaks urgently to the present. The Atlantean narrative describes a society that achieved extraordinary technological and material success, but gradually lost its spiritual grounding. Prosperity gave way to pride, knowledge gave way to domination. In this sense, Atlantis becomes a timeless cautionary tale. In an era defined by rapid technological advancement, environmental instability, and geopolitical complexity, the myth of Atlantis confronts us with an uncomfortable question. Are we repeating an ancient pattern? This book approaches Atlantis neither as unquestioned fact, nor as dismissible fantasy. It treats Atlantis as a multidimensional phenomenon that must be examined through several lenses at once. Historically, we begin with the original sources, situating them in their cultural and philosophical context. Comparatively, we examine parallel myths and flood traditions across civilizations. Archaeologically and geologically, we consider the evidence for ancient cataclysms and submerged landscapes. Esoterically, we explore the spiritual and metaphysical interpretations that have grown around the legend. Psychologically, we interpret Atlantis as symbol and archetype embedded within the human collective memory. Such an approach requires humility. The investigation of Atlantis cannot be reduced to a single discipline or dogmatic conclusion. It demands openness to evidence without surrendering critical inquiry. It requires the ability to hold paradox, that Atlantis may be both myth and memory, allegory and history, symbolic truth and possible geological reality. Rather than forcing a definitive answer, this work seeks to illuminate the many dimensions of the question itself. Ultimately, Atlantis still matters because it invites us to remember. Whether that remembrance is literal or symbolic, it calls us to reflect on who we are as a species and where we are headed. It challenges us to consider the relationship between power and wisdom, technology and morality, progress and humility. It reminds us that civilizations are not immortal. They're sustained not only by innovation, but by integrity. If Atlantis once existed in stone and marble, it now exists in consciousness. Its ruins, whether physical or metaphorical, lie within the depths of the human story. To explore Atlantis is to explore ourselves, our origins, our vulnerabilities, our aspirations, and our recurring patterns of rise and fall. The pages that follow do not promise a simple answer to the question of whether Atlantis was real. Instead, they offer a journey through history, myth, science, and symbolism. In that journey, Atlantis becomes more than a lost world beneath the sea. It becomes a mirror held before modern humanity, a reminder that memory, wisdom, and responsibility are inseparable.